suddenly realized that I was talking not just for myself, but for my family, for my community, for my ancestors.
Hi everybody, this is Silas from AsianCultureVulture.com. How are you doing? I'm delighted you could join me. We're going to be talking to the musician and composer Soumik Datta about a series of films he's just dropped on YouTube called Silent Spaces. They were shot in some pretty remarkable buildings like the Royal Albert Hall and the British Museum, completely empty and in lockdown. He's filled them with music, dance and poetry. Let's find out more. Soumik, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm great, Silas. Nice to see you. Long time.
Yeah. It's great to see you as well. Tell me, how did Silent Spaces come about? It's a remarkable set of 6 films, beautifully shot, great music as well, which obviously you're behind as the musician and composer. But tell us where the concept came from.
Sure. I think, like many of us, many artists, in the middle of 2020, it's quite a confusing time, and it was difficult to know what the next steps were going to be. And 2 things happened. I think one was a general sense of various societal silences being broken, whether that was the Black Lives Matter movement and all of us just following it so closely or being part of it, feeling engaged, how we can actually, how it affects not just the Black community or the white community, but also South Asians. Like, what is the role of South Asian people in that debate? The second thing that was happening in parallel was a sense of these spaces that we call sort of cultural spaces or art venues. While they are shut, it made me wonder, what are we losing in this time? What do they really stand for? What do they represent? And what does it mean that they are shut?
Right. But it's not like you woke up one morning and thought, I'd love to film inside the British Museum now that we're in lockdown.
So the first episode is shot at the British Museum, and the other ones at various other places, and we worked very closely with each venue to find out what were the themes that were important to them and how could we address them through the video and the song and the lyrics and the poetry. So it certainly wasn't that I just wanted to go into a space and start filming. It was very much about trying to use this time to better understand what each of these spaces represent. What role do they have to play in today?
Sure.
What is the role of a concert hall? What is the role of a museum that holds treasures from various different countries in one place in a totally different country? What is the cost to all of that?
What do you want to come from these films? What's the next step beyond?
More than anything, what both Souvid and I wanted to do was create a space where artists could become vehicles to talk about important issues.
Yeah, right.
And I think for me, that's the role of the art today. And not just in sort of these metro centers, but across the country, I think, which is why we wanted to choose venues that weren't just in London or...
Sure.
We wanted to reach out to the Northeast. I guess lockdown just leveled the field a bit and made us realize, well, we are sort of in the same boat, but also some people have it worse. And I think if you look at the Northeast, they've really been struck by some of the highest numbers of unemployment and, industries going down. I know that many of the cultural centers have had to close down, which is so sad, letting go of staff that have been there for years and years and years. And it's dangerous if those hubs aren't supported, because it means that the communities around them are growing up without culture, without dialogue, without inspiration and art.
Sure.
We wanted to talk about colonialism. We wanted to talk about the role of, the immigrant experience, really.
Yeah.
And the sort of DNA trauma that comes with it. And the British Museum felt like the right fit for it. So we went with that.
Right.
Royal Albert Hall felt like the right space to talk about, this is a space filled with thousands of people coming to watch shows every day, and now it's empty. So it's very much the sort of core message of art spaces and the emptiness around them and what that means. We wanted to go to Hawkwood because out in Gloucestershire, because they've been an institution championing sustainability in the creative sectors for years.
Right.
And similarly with Depot Mayfield, Sage Gateshead, it was theme and venue combined. So it was a bit of a jigsaw at the beginning.
Did it very much start with the music?
Did it start with the music? No, it started with just it started with a sort of mental image of foyers, stairways, hallways, backstage areas, box office areas, auditoriums, the bars, just being completely empty. There was a need to say, well, okay, if I could, what would I break that silence with?
Right.
And who would break it with me?
Yeah.
And that was the starting point. There's been a real, like, sort of off the moment feeling with this whole thing that hasn't gone because we were still in lockdown. So the project felt alive. It felt like it was connected to the world here, out there, everywhere. And so there was no moment where we could take a break from it. I'd love for people to watch back these videos as a sort of as a celebration of what culture means to us, of what cultural houses mean to us, and in that I include everything. I include everything from small pubs to nightclubs to concert halls to massive museums. You know, it's all one big giant unit that, and we live within it. And the dialogues that they invite they feel crucial to this time.
Do you have a favorite moment when you were in these spaces and filming? Something that stayed with you?
Favorite moment?
I mean, one thing that...
I mean, I think the moment that for me was, really, and it still sort of makes my hair stand on end a little bit, is being inside the British Museum and being able to perform this or speak this sort of spoken word poetry that I had written a year ago, a few days after the killing of George Floyd.
Right.
I wrote that back in May 2020, and in January 2021, when we got into the space, I was able to stand in front of the bust of Sir Hans Sloane, who is the sort of one of the founding members of the museum, but also like a well-known slave owner.
Yeah.
And I was able to perform that in that context, and there was this sort of fever that came over me, because I suddenly realized that I was talking not just for myself, but for my family, for my community, for my ancestors.
When we take statues, we didn't take these statues down. We should have a little plaque saying,
exactly,
putting the other side. And that's in a way what you're doing, I suppose. I
mean, exactly. I mean, I don't know how I ever felt about these statues being pulled down or thrown into the river and things like that. Just the violence of that didn't quite sit right with me. But in some ways, this is what my offering is to that debate. You know, to say that there is a way to deal with these relics and what they represent, and maybe the way to deal with them is through art.